We can, like the psalmist says, fear no evil because of what he says here. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. So the first reason we can live a life of fearing no evil, it doesn't mean that we're not experiencing the visualization of evil and even tempted to fear. But the reason we can overcome that fear of evil in our day is because of the presence of our shepherd. He says, you are with me. And you have to notice the shift that takes place here. In the earlier part of this passage, David is referring to God. He's saying that the Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down. He leads me beside quiet waters. He's telling you about his God. But then at this point in the passage, he turns to God. He moves from he to you. He turns from information to intimacy. My question for you today is, do you talk a lot about God? Do you think a lot about God? That's great if you do. I hope you do. I hope you talk about God. I hope you share your faith. I hope you tell your friends and family members and neighbors about this God you know. But I wonder if it ever gets intimate for you. I wonder if you go from talking about God to moving to talk to God. Are you intimate with Him? And what I mean is do you know Him and do you express your heart to Him? He knows all the ins and outs about you. But praying to God, saying to Him, you, Lord, are with me. I'm not just telling my friend that, hey, I serve a God who's with me. I'm talking to God, saying, Lord, you are with me. Here in this valley of the shadow of death language, David's language turns from mere theology and ideas about God to expressing his intimacy to God. A fascinating note about this valley of the shadow of death, it's highly likely that David is referring to an actual place in the world. I'm not 100% sure about this, but he certainly would have known about a land formation that today is called the Wadi Kelt. In Hebrew, it's called the Nahal Prat, and it's this deep, cavernous, narrow pathway that sits between Jerusalem and Jericho. It's the Jordan River runs from the Sea of Galilee down between Israel and Jordan. It comes down and it makes its way through this narrow high cliff passageway that's dark and historically known for cave robbers, known for attackers that would hide in the caves. And David is referring to either this place or a place very much like it. And he's saying, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. See, David was a man who was acquainted with evil. He was acquainted with the threat of impending danger, someone who would want to attack him. We see this all throughout his life. We see this man who is being threatened from all sides throughout his life, and he's got a physical representation of this place. But here's what David relied upon. He relied upon the fact that even though, and think about this, he's not saying even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He says even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Here's the reality you and I have to understand is that while we may not walk down a true cavernous ravine on both sides where there's going to be attackers, you and I should assume that we're going to face valleys of darkness in our lives. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Here's the truth about something like transition from one place to another. This valley was not just something you would walk down and come up the other side. This was a valley you had to walk through to transition the sheep from one part of the region to the next. You and I are going to have valleys that we don't just go from mountaintop. We think of mountaintop to mountaintop, and we're going to go through the valley to the other side. Sometimes it's not from mountaintop to mountaintop. Sometimes it's just through the valley to an open space. Transition can feel this way. A new season can feel this way. Greener pastures that God's leading you through that feel scary and dangerous to walk through. Sometimes it feels like, Lord, have you abandoned me in the middle of this? But David's language brings us back here to this reality that even though I have to walk through these valleys of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Why? Because you, not just he, because you, Lord, are with me. The presence of the shepherd.